If you're looking for tips to keep a showroom finish on your vehicle, then you've come to the right video. I am going to go through the steps I follow every spring after a hard Wisconsin winter to get the vehicle back in shape for the summer. I have used this process for many years, and I've enjoyed polishing vehicles ever since I was a little kid on the farm when I first got to help Simonize my dad's '57 Buick underneath the pine trees in the front yard. It's not necessarily a fast process and not necessarily an easy process, but it's one that will get the job done step by step. If you're interested in that, well, follow along. My name is Fred, and this is Make This Your Project, and we're going to tackle some routine vehicle maintenance. The first thing you have to do, of course, is get the vehicle clean. It's sunny out today, and I don't recommend washing a vehicle in the sun, except this is the only opportunity I've got. It's in the low 50s today. It's in March. It's not very hot. I'm going to wash the shady sides of the vehicle first and quickly wash the sides that are in the sun, get it in the garage, and get it wiped off. But in normal warm weather, don't wash your vehicle in the sun. It's going to leave spots and streaks all over the finish. But I'm doing this today because I need to get it done, and so I can give you some illustration of what has to happen. Now, the first thing I did, because this vehicle was covered with road salt, because where we live, you use a lot of salt in the winter, I ran it through the car wash, the brushless, contactless car wash, with the heavier cycle to make sure I got the heavy stuff off before I washed it by hand for the final wash. You don't want to wash it by hand when it's got a lot of grit and sand and dust on it, because that'll get drugged back and forth on the finish and put a surface haze on it. You don't want to do that. Because this has been run through the car wash a couple of times this winter, it has a film on the glass. And I like to get that film off, and that's easy to do. I take a bucket of water and just a dab of regular soft scrub. Gently go over the glass. Don't use this on plastic lenses because it'll leave a swirl, but it won't bother the glass. And I touch the mirror up a little bit too. Rinse that off right away so it doesn't set up. Make sure it's rinsed down off the side of the vehicle. And what I wash it with is a good high quality foaming car wash. This happens to be Rain-X. I've used other brands, Turtle Wax, different ones, but you want to use something specifically for washing your car. And it leaves fewer spots. It does a better job cleaning it up. I've got that mixed up here in a bucket with some cool water. I wet the vehicle down. In this case, I have the step-ups out so I can get those clean too. What I use is this soft touch mitt. To wash the vehicle off. Be sure you hit all the areas so you don't leave any streaks. Do one section at a time to make sure you get it clean. And then rinse it off. Don't leave that soapy water dry on there. And if it's a low humidity day, it'll dry quickly, and it's low humidity and windy today. I'm going to go ahead, get the rest of this vehicle washed, and then we are going to make it shine. After washing the vehicle, make sure you get it in the shade right away. If you haven't been in the shade, first thing you do is get the windows squeegeed off and dried off, because they're going to spot up if you don't, especially if you've got hard water like we do here. And then you take a nice, soft, clean terry towel, not a chamois cloth, because they strip wax if you're washing this thing mid-year where you've got a fresh coat of wax on it. Terry towel just to get the vehicle dried off so that there are no drops on it. You don't want drops because they turn into spots. Now that the vehicle is completely washed and dried off, the next step I take is I get any road grime off from the lower areas of the doors and around the wheel wells, on the fenders, and sometimes on the back lid of the vehicle that I pick up driving on blacktop roads that we have around here. Sometimes you'll get imperfections on here from just salt and stuff that gets picked up, but oftentimes driving around here where roads have been seal coated or freshly blacktop, you'll get little bits of tar stuck on here, and the only way to get those off safely is to use a clay bar. I happen to use Mother's clay bar, and it's just a bar of clay like this. This one has been used and folded over to get a clean side up, and what you do is you just apply some of the detailer that they provide with this onto the area you want to clean, and you work the clay bar over it, and it picks up any of the debris, the material that's stuck on here safely without scratching the surface of the paint. And just to show you, here's an older one, and it has some dark on the surface. It picks the stuff up into the clay, and you keep rolling it over until you can't get a clean area. You've sprayed that on there. Now, before it dries, you want to be sure and have a clean terry towel available that you can wipe this until it's dry. And this is a detailer, and you can use this in between waxing sometimes to keep the finish up. I just use it with the clay bar to keep a nice smooth finish. I'm not going to do the whole vehicle this time because it's clean. I don't have any spots on here right now. But if you have material like that stuck on here that doesn't come off with washing, this is what I recommend using to get that off. After I've gotten all of the old tar specks and any other rough things off of the finish, and I've got it nice and smooth, I take some premium cleaner from, in this case, Duplicolor. I've used this for many years. I've at one point even had a gallon jug of it when I was doing a lot of work on a number of vehicles. And what it does is it completely degreases the surface if you've got oil on the top, and it'll also remove any residual road tar, take bugs off, if you've got old wax on here. And in my case, this has been run through the car wash a couple of times this winter, and the car washes with the soap they use, sometimes they put a little sealer on there. And if you want your polish to stick later, you want to make sure you've got this surface perfectly clean. And it's easy enough to do, but you need to do it outside because this stuff is, the fumes are not the best thing to have in a closed area. I happen to have these industrial rags. I fold it up to a nice pad, get it damp with some of the cleaner, and just gently work it back and forth in a small area, enough to loosen any material that's on there, and then quickly follow up with a clean, dry rag to make sure that I pull the material off from the finish. And as you do this, you will feel it begin to drag a little bit as you've taken some of the wax or other things off the top that were making it slide. My next step, after I've cleaned the finish off with the clay bar for any of the rough stuff, and then with the solvent to get any wax and oil and the other debris off, if I need to, if I've got surface swirling on here, minor swirling on the finish, I will take the step of using swirl remover. This is a paint shop grade cleaner. This, because it's only light swirling, is a light grade. It's step 9 cleaner, swirl remover 2.0 from Meguiar's. And I use this only on a vehicle that's been on the road for a while, and for whatever reason it's got swirling. What happens to us sometimes if we're driving in the southwest in an arid desert type area and we get into some wind, we'll get some dry sandy wind across here. That can cause swirling a little bit in the finish. If you're someone that happens to run it through a car wash with brushes, a touch car wash, sometimes that'll drag debris across and give swirling on the finish. The best way to take that off is with this cleaner. If it's really light, I just take an old washcloth again, shake this up really well, put some on here, and then apply it in very, very small areas. Work it around with a fair amount of pressure because you're trying to essentially work out those swirls, smooth them out. Once that's done, before this dries off, you need to take a clean towel and work it to wipe that polish off before it dries. And as you work it, you will start to see it shine, and the finish will get even smoother than it was before. Thing to note is I have separate towels of different colors for the different stages here. So this towel and one more are reserved for this type of work, and I wash them when I'm all done with the vehicle, so I've got them ready to use the next time. Don't mix this up with the same towel you would take the wax off or do some other kind of polishing work with. Now, in extreme cases, on an older vehicle that I'm trying to restore, like I've got a vehicle up in the shed that I'm in the process of restoring. I'll be doing a video on getting that back on the road. Finish is pretty bad. I'll use a harsher cleaner on that to start bringing the finish back, end up with something actually even lighter than that swirl remover to bring back the shine before I put polish on the vehicle. And in those cases, I've got a low-speed orbital polisher that I'll use to get in there and really dig into the finish and get it cleaned up. If you've got the tools, it makes the jobs really easy. But a vehicle like this one where there is no swirling, I'm not going to do the polish. If it had minor swirling, I certainly wouldn't use a machine on it. I would just use that washcloth and lightly go around and get this thing cleaned up. One spot I am going to use swirl remover on this vehicle, even though it's fairly new, is underneath the door handle on each door, because as people open the door and they run their hand through, fingernails leave scratch marks in the finish. And so I just take a little bit of the swirl remover and get inside of there and work it around. Get it from both sides so I can get some pressure on there. Take my terry towel. You can hear it squeak as I wipe on that. It gets the finish clean and smooth. And just like that, those fingernail marks are gone from inside of the door handle. Do that before you put the polish on. Once you've got everything cleaned up and you got the swirling out of there and a nice shine on the paint, you need to put some good quality polish on. This is what I use, yet another brand of product, Wizard's Shine Master Polish and Sealant. This stuff really holds up. It stays on throughout the year and it sheds water, and by doing that it helps keep the surface of the vehicle clean. A good rain will help clean things off in between washes. Just shake it up. Have your another clean washcloth here dedicated just for waxing. Get some polish on that and apply it with a fair amount of pressure, because it will do some polishing as well if you need it, but not a great deal of pressure. You're just trying to distribute it evenly on the surface. And with this, you can just let it dry to a haze. As a matter of fact, you need to, so you can do the entire hood, or I generally do the entire vehicle, and then I go back and I take it off with a towel. Get that worked in really well. Do not get this on plastic trim. You get this stuff on plastic trim, like the plastic trim up here, it's almost impossible to get out, but you can do it. And I might do a separate video sometime on how to get this polish back out of trim. It's a job, but it can be done. So be really careful. Don't get that stuff on this black plastic trim that you see on a lot of vehicles. We've got a haze now. I'm going to wipe that off. And now I've done this small section. I can feel the difference between here and where I haven't put the polish. Smooth, the towel will just practically slide. Here it starts to bind up. So this polish has worked its way into the surface. And we're going to have a real nice shine on here that's going to repel water and dirt. To show what a difference putting the polish on can make, I did that half of the hood and I haven't polished this half of the hood yet. Well, this half, notice, the towel does not slide. I have to push it across the finish. But this side over here that I've waxed or polished, towel slides right off with just a little push. Another area you don't want to overlook when you're applying polish, if you have painted alloy wheels, painted on the inside of the spokes and even the outside where it's shiny, they are coated as well. You want to be sure and get some polish in and around all of those areas to help shed water there. It'll keep them surprisingly clean even throughout the winter because the snow and things will shed more easily if you get some polish on there. And again, that's easy enough to do. Just get a little polish on your application cloth here and just carefully work it into the sections here. Takes a little bit of patience, but it's pretty easy to do. And again, as with the surface of the vehicle, let it dry to a haze. And then take it off with your removal towel. This is already drying to a haze. It's a nice dry day today with a breeze. Nice and smooth, and it'll keep that wheel nice and clean and shiny. Something else you may want to pay some attention to is the plastic lens cover on your headlights and even on your tail lights. They get a lot of wear because they're driving right into the wind, and depending what goes by, bugs hitting it, road debris, they can get a little swirly and they can start to get yellowed. What you want to do is keep those polished up as well. I'm not going to do it on this vehicle because it's already been done a couple of weeks ago and they're in very good shape. But I do have another video out there. It's a short where I show the steps involved with applying a good polish to the clear lenses and then putting sealer on to make sure they stay good and clean and shiny. So if you want to see how to do that in detail, take a look at that short video from a few weeks ago. The vehicle has now been completely polished. Polish has been removed. Now we get to some more finer detail work. Oftentimes when you polish around emblems, raised lettering, around door handles, you'll get a little wax residue in here that you can't get out with a towel. I take a clean, soft toothbrush and just very carefully work that around edges like that, and that'll remove the residue from the polish. With all the polishing and cleanup done, it's time to do a final cleaning on these windows. I mix up half an ice cream bucket of really warm water with a good splash of ammonia, and that is the best thing to get any kind of glass clean. And these might still have a little residual from cleaning them up with that soft scrub that we did earlier. So I take my sponge with my ammonia and water, turn it over, make sure everything has been wiped good and clean. Take my small squeegee and just squeegee it off. Make sure you keep the squeegee wiped off. I just keep my towel handy here and wipe it off. Work the angle. Clean terry towel. Go around to catch the edges to get any drips that you couldn't get with the squeegee, and you have a perfectly clean window. I'm going to go all the way around the vehicle, do it inside and out. When I'm pretty much done with all the polishing and window cleanup, one thing I always make sure I do is I get some fresh Rain-X on the windshield. And the way I put it on, I like to use the spray Rain-X. I've used both kinds, but the spray Rain-X is very convenient. I take an old bed sheet, white one, after I spray it and use that to work the Rain-X around on the windshield. And then it will set up. I get both sides of the windshield, and then I come back and I remove the residue and get it polished up. So I just take a damp sponge with clean, cool water and just lightly get a little bit of moisture on the glass. Take a paper towel, work it around to get the bulk of the Rain-X off. To finish it off, I take another dry, clean piece of paper towel and buff the glass off, and that gets off the remainder of the residual from the Rain-X. And that's all there is to it. The windshield is now protected. What Rain-X does, for me anyway, is it helps the water shed when you're out in the rain and the snow, and it seems to save wear and tear on the wiper blades and on the glass because it's a lot smoother for the blades to pass over the glass if you have something like Rain-X on the windshield. That wraps up this video on polishing your vehicle. It's all set to go for a summer of travel. And I will be doing another video going over some of the mechanical things that I check over before we head out on a long trip across the country to make sure we don't run into any issues along the way. So keep your eyes open for that, and the best way to do that is to click like and subscribe to our channel so you're notified when I release that video and other videos where I do vehicle maintenance and other things around here. So with that, I thank you again for watching. Enjoy your projects and take care.